Hey there, Wastelanders! This is the final scenario of the battle for Saugus Ironworks mini-campaign for Fallout Wasteland Warfare. I've been playing through this campaign using the forces of the Forged Raiders and going up against different lists that are primarily controlled by the Wasteland Warfare AI. Today's battle is a huge 750 caps per side battle between the Forged and the Sole Survivors' motley band of companions. The map today represents the interior of the Ironworks. There's a huge active molten pool filled with liquid metal in the center. Small buildings surround it, and there's an old conveyor system as well. As per usual in the Wasteland, there's also some rubble scattered around. From the scenario description: having battled their way inside the Ironworks, dodging the rogue security bots that lurked inside, they'd made it to the infernal core of the facility. The gantries and hallways echo with gunfire and the moans of the wounded and dying. Still, the prize is close. Not only is this going to make a great base, but scouts had reported seeing a highly prized treasure in the smelting chamber ahead. They just have to clear out the last of the enemy, and it'll be theirs. As both forces close in on the blast furnace, this battle will decide who gets to take ownership of the Ironworks, and the treasure and resources within. How long that ownership will last is a whole nother matter, of course. Since this is the campaign finale, I built both of the forces a bit larger than the previous scenarios. Each side clocks in at a solid 750 caps. The Forge have arrived in force this time. Since Bedlam failed in her last mission, Slag has decided to take the reins back himself this time. He's wearing his personal power armor and toting an incinerator. He's also got the Commander Leader perk. Bedlam is alongside him still, with her signature incendiary super sledge and wearing an army helmet for extra armor. Perpetual failson Jake Finch has been dragged along for this as well. He has his normal shish kebab, but in anticipation of losing it to Slag, he also has a baton. For ranged attacks, he's bringing a 357 Magnum in the hopes that those 2 green dice make up for his abysmal combat skills. Since he's also pretty low on armor and HP, he's wearing some sturdy metal armor. Since joining the Raiders, Jake has also picked up a bad chem habit and has some Fury drugs in his back pocket. Backing up the unique Raiders, we have a generic Forge with a flamer and an assaultron blade, a scaver packing a trail carbine, 2 psychos with pipe wrenches, Molotov cocktails, and a dose of Fury each, and finally 1 generic Raider with a pipe wrench and a pipe pistol. The first thing that happens is that Slag wrenches the shish kebab away from Jake, presumably saying yoink while he does so. On the opposite side, the Sole Survivor has brought all their friends to the party. She herself has a Fusilier perk, which synergizes with her hunting rifle. For melee, she's got a Deathclaw gauntlet. Of course, Dogmeat is faithfully tagging along. Strong has followed, and he has a super sledge and the default Entangle perk. Nick Valentine is also here with a 12.7mm pistol, mainly because it fits in the list caps-wise. Kate has her signature double-barrel shotgun and baseball bat, plus a dose of Mentats to take the edge off. Hancock has come along as well, possibly following Kate's chems, but brought a plasma pistol to the party as well. Rounding out the team, we have the OG Preston Garvey with his long-barrel laser musket. The scenario for this mission is fairly straightforward. One of these 6 searchable markers is the MacGuffin that both sides are searching for. It's the one that's numbered 4. To uncover a marker, a model in base contact with it has to succeed on its search check. Whomever holds a MacGuffin at the end of turn 5 wins. The other scenario rules are related to the molten pool. If a model ends up inside that area, they are instantly removed. No damage or armor roll required. Also, you can throw a thrown weapon into the pool and try to splash some molten metal on your enemies, though I basically forgot about that option after setup. The Sole Survivor and Preston set up on the left and right sides of the deployment zone, planning to push for the elevated sniper nests of their respective sides. Strong, Kate, and Dogmeat set up next to them for melee support. Hancock and Nick Valentine join their respective groups to be the primary searchers looking for the MacGuffin. The Raiders split up into a few more disparate groups. Jake and Bedlam on the right flank, the Scaver and one of the Psychos next, then Slag and the generic Forged in the middle, and the other Psycho and the generic Raider close out the left flank. While putting out the AI markers, I recalled the special faction rule that unique survivors get a strong armor token at setup. Whoopee. Since the survivors have fewer models, they get the advantage to start. Hancock gets the first ready token. Since he has a specific rule that another model activating after him gets a bonus, I thought it would be fair to not have him activate right away, which would waste that opportunity. So I decided that when he gets picked for the AI, he wouldn't immediately activate. The next time the survivors are up, then the only models who are within his aura are qualified for selection. On the Raider side, Bedlam readies up as well. She also has a special rule where she can give bonuses to models that activate in the same turn as her. Next on the survivor side was Kate. She and Hancock both move up. She goes wide around the flank, and he stays in cover but in prime position to check the searchable next turn. Jake readies up, preparing to get a bonus from Bedlam. Preston can't quite make it to the ladder, so he moves up and ducks back behind the building for cover. Scaver readies up next. The sole survivor charges up the ramp and takes up her sniper position. She doesn't have any cover, but the height elevation will help when firing down, and with plenty of armor and health, she's probably fine. The Psycho nearest to Bedlam readies up as well. With that, this block is all ready to go. First thing first, everyone gets a boost token from Bedlam's teamwork ability. Jake jets up the stairs to make a play for the searchable that's inside this 2-story building. Bedlam herself scrambles over some difficult terrain to check for one of the other searchables. The Psycho pops their Fury drugs for the bonus armor and then screams out into the middle of the field to check yet another searchable. Finally, the Scaver ascends to one of the shed buildings, taking up a sniper position. Back on the survivor side, Strong pushes up, mostly keeping the debris pile between him and the raiders. Slag activates and gets 2 tokens for his Commander Leader ability. He can let others take one during their activation to get an action point. He strides forward and climbs up onto the defunct conveyor belt. Dogmeat activates and is just barely shy of being able to move and charge into the Psycho. So instead, the Pooch just does a double move. The other Psycho also pops their drugs and screams up the flank and prepares to check another searchable. These red move distances are great for the scenario, or at least for getting into position. We'll see if they live long enough to investigate them. To illustrate that point further, Nick Valentine clambers up the rubble pile with his extended movement range as well. The generic raider climbs up onto the conveyor belt alongside Slag and takes a prepare token. They're ready for anything now. Finally, the generic forged also pushes up, unsure exactly where their flamer is going to be the most effective. That brings the first turn to a close. Lots of jockeying for position, but no shots fired. Yet. Since the survivors still have fewer models, they keep the advantage. Hancock randomly gets the draw to start again, so he readies but does not activate. Being so out in the open, the Psycho in the middle of the field activates before they get smothered in attacks. They successfully search, but what they turn up isn't what we're looking for. For their second action, they throw a Molotov at Dogmeat. It misses, but actually lands a little further back, catching both the intended target and also the sole survivor. A little bit of luck coming out of an unlucky toss. Then the sole survivor opts to ready up next as well. Hancock goes first and uncovers the next searchable token. It's not the one we're looking for either. The sole survivor activates and takes a point of damage from the fire. It soaks up their bonus strong armor token and does not go out. Lucky for us. Since one Psycho has already turned up nothing, the sole survivor decides to shoot at the one that hasn't activated yet, and could potentially uncover the MacGuffin we're hunting for. So they take a shot at the Psycho who hasn't activated yet. It's a near miss, and Nick Valentine is just in aura range, so they're able to use one of his luck tokens to turn it into a hit. Even with the armor break though, the Psycho's amped up druggy armor blocks all the damage. The second shot connects on its own merits, and a point of damage gets through. The Psycho uses their reaction to try and quickly uncover the searchable, but fails. The generic raider reacts by taking a pot shot at Dogmeat, which connects. It gets 2 damage through, taking the doggo's strong armor token and getting a point of damage on him. Slag activates next and charges Dogmeat to tie him up before he can activate. The charge attack would have been a nice solid hit if it hadn't missed. Slag is actually surprisingly bad in melee. Next up is Kate swinging in from the flank with a move and charge into the Psycho, who has no idea if this searchable is relevant or not. Since the Psycho is now tied up in melee with Kate, the generic raider tries to answer that question, but isn't able to uncover the secret. Strong swings around with a move and charge to engage Slag. Now the raider boss is definitely a bit outclassed when it comes to melee ability. In response to Strong's move, the generic raider takes another try at uncovering the MacGuffin, but fails again. Jake gets into the building and onto the searchable. Even with a bonus green effect die from Bedlam, he still fails to uncover the item. Real solid work there. Preston also clambers up and onto the marker, but doesn't have enough actions to search for the item. The Scaver takes a pair of shots into Nick. The first one would have been a miss were it not for the -3 rolled on the effect die. A bad armor roll means that all 3 go through, eating his strong armor token and taking a third of his HP. The next shot doesn't get as much help from the effect die, so it misses. Suddenly appreciating the urgency of the situation, Nick goes next and uncovers the next searchable. It's not the MacGuffin either. With only a few searchables remaining, Nick moves up over the difficult terrain to try to prepare in case one of the nearby ones are revealed to be the target. He does take a reaction shot from the scaver, which hits, but it glances off his synth plating. The generic Forged goes next, moving up and trying to get some fire onto Nick with a flamer, but it misfires. Lucky for him. Dogmeat is up and takes a point of damage from being on fire, but successfully stops, drops, and rolls, so it goes out. He starts into Slag, rolling what would have been a big 4 damage hit with a generated action point, except he missed by a hair. His second chomp lands much better. It only gets 1 damage in thanks to Slag's strong armor bonus from the power armor, but getting a broken arm through means that Slag goes from being bad at melee to downright awful, and there's nothing on our side that can fix that. Bedlam tries furiously to uncover the item amongst the debris, but keeps coming up empty. A whole turn wasted. The final Psycho can't try to search the marker because they're a bit preoccupied with Kate swinging away at them, so they try to swing back. The first attempt is a near miss, but still a miss. The second swing connects, but gets blocked on armor. No damage. That wraps things up for turn 2. Despite pouncing on the searchables early, the Forged are having a much harder time uncovering them, and the MacGuffin is still in the wind. With half the tokens off the board, though, getting these remaining ones is going to be a challenge. As the model count is still uneven, the survivors retain the advantage for turn 3. Hancock randomly gets drawn to go first again, so he readies up but does not activate. It takes both his actions, but Jake Finch is finally able to reveal the searchable, and it's our MacGuffin. The Perpetual Failson is now in possession of the item needed to claim victory. He also pops his Fury Chems, as it's likely that he's going to be needing that extra armor really soon. The Sole Survivor readies up next, but Hancock activates first. He moves up and tries to take a shot at Jake, but misses. Using their reaction, the generic Forge takes a shot at Nick, getting 2 damage through and setting him on fire. The Sole Survivor activates and takes a point of damage from being on fire. Fortunately for them, though, the fire does go out this turn. Rather than relocating, the Sole Survivor stands in place and takes 2 long-range shots with their hunting rifle. The first one hits, but gets blocked on armor. The second one also hits, but also gets blocked on armor. Fury is great for this sort of situation, as long as it lasts. Bedlam activates next for the Raiders and charges up the ladder to engage Preston. She doesn't get to attack, but tangling him up before he can let loose a barrage into Jake is worth it. Preston activates next and takes his first shot in melee into Bedlam. It hits but gets blocked on armor. But then he uses a shift move to get into contact with Jake without catching a parting blow. His second shot into Jake also hits, but also gets blocked by armor. I know they're not in base contact in the photo, but that's just because it was tricky to reach in there and move the models around without knocking everyone into the hole in the floor. Slag activates next and tries to put some swings into Dogmeat, but fails both times. He would have preferred to back up and take a shot with the incinerator, but taking 2 parting shots in the back seemed way riskier. Nick Valentine activates next and loses his penultimate hit point, but the fire does go out. Realizing that Jake could bolt out the back door and become almost impossible to bring down, Nick uses his extra long movement distance to head up the stairs and block the door. Unfortunately for him, the Scaver goes next and drops him with her second shot. Dogmeat disengages from Slag and heads over to the other side of the board to follow through on Nick's plan. The Scaver takes a reaction shot, but misses. The generic Forge has a new target and singes a single point of damage into Dogmeat, but also sets him alight again. The second shot from the Flamer crit fails. Maybe the gas tank needed to get changed or something. Strong wants to drop Slag for good, so swings away with a super sledge. The first attack is a whopping 5 damage, 1 armor break crit with a broken arm, but Slag does manage to shrug off 3 of those damage with armor and only takes 2. His arm is already broken, so the second broken arm does nothing, just like in real life. Strong prepares for the kill shot, and crit fails out. Womp womp. Since all the action is coalescing on the eastern side of the board, the Psycho goes to join the party. They charge Dogmeat and get 1 more point of damage in with the pipe wrench. Too far to help on the other side of the map, Kate decides to at least try to clear out this flank of the Forged forces. She first attempts to try to use the double-barrel shotgun in melee, but misses. Since the DBS is slow firing, her second attack has to be with the baseball bat. It hits, but the damage gets blocked by the Psycho's druggy armor. Deciding to help out their beleaguered leader, the generic Raider charges into Strong. With a bonus black die from the charge and a green from outnumbering, she's able to get a good hit in and knock 2 damage off of him. The second Psycho retaliates against Kate. Their first swing is a miss, but the second one connects and gets 3 damage through, reduced to 2 because Kate still has her strong armor token from setup. That's a wrap for turn 3. The Forged now have possession of the MacGuffin, and the survivors are desperately trying to wrench it from their control. The sole survivor activates first and uses their long-range hunting rifle to put a pair of shots into Jake. The first one hits, and even gets a damage through. The second one also connects, but the Fury-backed armor holds up. Jake, of course, activates next, and scurries out of the building and down into cover. Maybe I'll pull this off. I'll finally earn someone's respect, he thinks to himself, cowering behind a pile of refuse. Kate activates next, and the effects of her mentats finally wear off. Fortunately for her, she doesn't become addicted. Or, well, more addicted. She tries again with the double-barrel shotgun in melee, but it fails again to land a hit. The Fallout baseball bat swing connects, though the single point of damage gets blocked by armor. Bedlam is up next, and she has one goal: stop Preston from getting to Jake. Her first swing is a good hit for 3 damage, but with one blocked on armor and the another blocked with a strong armor token, only 1 point goes through. The second swing is much better. With 2 armor break, all 3 points of damage get through, and Preston ignites. With only 7 total HP, Preston is below half now. Dogmeat activates next, and takes another point of damage from being on fire, but it does extinguish. He has a charge all set up, but by disengaging he triggers a parting tack from the Psycho, which finishes him off. I also realized later that you can't charge from one melee into another one, so there's no way that Dogmeat could have gotten an attack off this turn. He would have needed to move away first and then charge, and then attack next turn. With Dogmeat down, the Psycho uses their reaction token to ascend the ladder to make things even trickier for Preston. The Sole Survivor reacts to their reaction to try to drop the Psycho before they can harass Preston. Now that their Fury drugs have worn off, their armor doesn't stop the first shot, so they take 2 damage for the trouble. With Dogmeat's activation finally finished, the Forged get to go next. The Scaver puts a shot into Hancock, eating his strong armor token and putting another damage through. The second shot is a big 4 damage hit, which leaves Hancock with only a single HP remaining. To add insult to injury, she even gets an action point to prepare. Strong swings again at Slag, but crit fails with an action point. Since he has the ability to attack with an action point though, he does that, and crit fails again. His second full swing of the turn actually does connect, and gets another big 5 damage hit. Slag blocks 2, but that still brings him up to 5 total damage, so he's barely hanging on as well. The Forge with the Flamer is up next, and they finish off Hancock with another jet of fire. After that, they opt to stay put and prepared to intercept if anyone else goes after Jake. Preston is up next, and he takes a point of damage from the flame, but it goes out. The survivor's only real chance of success at this point has Preston sniping Jake from afar, so he tries to cut and run and get to the top of the stairs. However, Bedlam's parting blow connects and sends him to the floor. That's the end of turn 4, and at this point I called the game over as well. The scenario is supposed to end at the end of turn 5, but the survivors don't have anyone who could make it to Jake and deal any damage to him in this last turn. So the survivors pull back to lick their wounds and regroup. "The Ironworks is mine! Mine!" shouts Slag after them. The campaign conclusion wraps up as so. As the dust settled and the last of the enemy were put out of their misery, he looked at the trinket they fought over. Some kid's toy. A bobble-headed blonde guy in a blue jumpsuit. Hardly seems worth all the effort and bloodshed. Still, they had a new base of operations with plenty of scrap to carve up into new gear. Noise was there was a fancy farm nearby run by ghouls. Time to load up and have a look. If this was to work as a base, they were going to need a decent food supply. And that's the end of the scenario, and also the end of the mini-campaign. This scenario, I think, worked the best out of all 3 of them, but that's partially because the objective wasn't resolved as quickly as the other 2. Overall, though, I think it was a fun campaign, and would definitely recommend it to anyone getting into the game. I hope you enjoyed following along as well. That's it for now. Stay safe out there in the wasteland.